Have you ever seen professional wildlife photographs and wondered if getting pictures of that quality is based on skill or is just the result of using fancy, expensive equipment? I have, and now I'm testing out some expensive professional gear of my own to see if it will turn me into a pro photographer. The people over at OM Digital Solutions were nice enough to send me some gear to test out, including the OM1 mirrorless camera with a retail price of around $2,200 and their 300mm prime lens valued at nearly $3,000, along with their 150 to 400mm pro lens with a retail price of nearly $7,500. Before this testing, I'd only ever used point-and-shoot cameras, and I'm excited to see how this new gear will change my bird photography. The following images were all shot in JPEG and are completely unedited out of the camera except for cropping. Videos are also unedited. So this is our setup. I feel so professional. Let's get this out in the field. It is super snowy. I'm gonna kind of go out without really knowing a lot and just kind of being an uninformed photographer. I do have a meeting with someone from Olympus to kind of go over the best settings. But I'm gonna try it on my own and then we'll see what they say and we'll see if that impacts the quality. So there's a white-breasted nuthatch. Let's see if we can get that. Try some video. Well, dang, I feel like this already looks incredible, and I'm just kind of blindly snapping shots. Dude, this is so much fun. I feel like the stabilization is pretty solid, because with some of these larger rigs, sometimes if you take video, it looks really shaky, but it actually looks pretty stable with this. I feel like the clarity just makes it so much more fun to get photos and videos. Like, I feel like it's just so much more crisp. I love it so far. I continued taking photos with the OM1 and the 300mm lens, and a few days later, I had my meeting with the camera expert who showed me some settings to try out for bird photography. So I had the meeting about the camera settings, and I found it to be super helpful. It was actually a bird setting on this camera, so it'll focus in on like bird shapes and then specifically the eye for focus, and I also learned how to make the shutter speed faster. So that should help with birds in flight, quick moving little birds. So I have kind of settings set up now. We're going to try it now that it's a little more dialed in, see if there's a difference, see if we can get some more cool shots. After feeling like I got a good test of the 300mm lens, I switched to the 150 to 400mm pro lens. Although I snapped some shots in the yard, the main test for this lens happened in South Texas, a birding haven, where I had the opportunity to photograph and take videos of a variety of close-up, colorful species. After giving the camera and both lenses a thorough test, I was ready to make some comments about how they changed my photography. So let's kind of go through the pictures and see if we can answer the question, did this gear make me an incredible bird photographer? So we're going to start off with the pictures I took with the 300. So this one, before I talked to a specialist. And when I was using this, I was surprised how much it was more of just like a point and shoot. So it was kind of, I put the lens on. I thought I would have to be like focusing all the time, but it was much more, you just kind of look through, hold down halfway, and then press, and then go. So it was actually a lot more user-friendly than I thought. So let's take a look at these first images. I'm gonna pull them up on the computer. So this was one of the first ones that I took that I really liked, and it's of a white-breasted nuthatch, and you can actually see a little snowflake by its face. So when I started off and I just started snapping pictures, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. The kind of quality and clarity that you can get from this equipment. So starting off, this was a cool image to get in that first batch to kind of get me excited about using the gears. Next up, we have a little downy woodpecker. So I think one of the things I most notice is the clarity. Things look more clear, more sharp with this more expensive gear. This is a video of a European starling, and the video clarity kind of blew me away because It's higher frames per second, and I believe it's 4K video on this too, but you can check it out and just see how much more clear it is. You feel like you can really see every detail on the starling. This was a Cooper's hawk that had actually caught a bird in the backyard, and I feel like my series with this Cooper's hawk turned out really nice and clear. It's a little gory. You can see some of like the flesh in the bill, but I think it turned out really crisp. You can see the ferociousness of the hawk, the red eye. Overall, I was really satisfied with the clarity of the 300. I think for me, someone that's used to being able to get really close to birds, it's a little unsatisfying that thing, you have to be pretty close. Like if you're taking a picture of a bird that's really, really far away, it's just gonna be like a tiny dot. Additionally, with the more expensive gear, incredible what you can do with birds in flight. So changing that shutter speed up, this is gonna start the series of photos after I talked to the rep. So he was really useful in setting up custom settings. So we put a really high shutter speed up, so 1/2500. There's some debate online. It was kind of hard as a more beginner to find out if there was a disadvantage to having a high shutter speed. Sounds like it may not let as much light in because it's only opening for, you know, a fraction of a second there, so that might be one of the downsides. But basically after this I was shooting in a very high shutter speed, mostly in order to capture birds in flight like these Canada geese, and the crispness that you can get with birds in flight was really amazing to me with this higher quality gear. This is probably one of my favorite pictures that I actually took with this gear, and I think this looks awesome. This is an American tree sparrow. I got down on its level. It was feeding in the snow. Got a picture of it in the light, and the background is kind of darker. I think this turned out great. The crispness was incredible. I think this is probably one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. Really highlights the rufous on it, the spot on the chest. You can see that it's eating a seed. I was really, really pleased with this photo. Really excited when I took it. And with the higher quality gear, it just makes you more excited to go out and try to get photos of things. I can definitely see how you could go down a rabbit hole of just getting more and more into bird photography if you get higher quality gear and wanting more and more expensive stuff. So you gotta be careful you don't get too roped into it, but it has been really fun to go out and take photos. I was really fond of this chickadee too. It just turned out really cute. Oh, this was one of my favorite ones too. So funny story about this is we were actually dog sitting for our neighbor, and so I brought my camera along while I was walking the dog, and a couple red-tailed hawks flew over. So I got the camera up real quick. This is still with the 300. Took some photos. Got this really awesome photo of this red-tailed hawk in flight. Being able to see the individual feathers has just been awesome, and I feel like this one turned out really well. I was really pleased with this one, and just noting all the detail in it. There's a branch here in the bottom right part that got obscured. I feel like you could edit that out. Next up we have a white-throated sparrow, and this one I was really happy with too because it perched out in the open. There's a little clutter as far as like the composition. There's a lot of vines and things, but sometimes with birds that live in those more viney habitats, I feel like it almost looks natural to have them kind of be obscured because that's how your view of them would be. So it kind of makes sense that your photo of those birds would be obscured as well. This was still with the 300mm, and then this next photo is the first one that I took with this 150 to 400. It's worth noting it also has a built-in teleconverter, so if you flip this switch it gives you a little extra length, which is pretty neat that it has it built in. You can buy other teleconverters to get extra distance that you kind of put on here and then your lens, but it's neat that it has one built in. So this next one is with that lens. So cute little chickadee portrait. The stick kind of gets in the way, but again, I feel like the crispness of the photo is there, which I really enjoyed. And that fast shutter speed really helps make the edges crisp as well. And then this is the start of the Rio Grande Valley birding and bird photography. So this was a ringed kingfisher in flight. You can see how crisp it is, but it was at kind of the max range of the lens, so it isn't necessarily the most clear. But it's neat that you can capture birds in flight that are still. There's no blurring there, and that was cool to be able to control that a little more, how much blurring you wanted based on your shutter speed. I did a lot with shutter speed. The Altamira Orioles I feel like photographed really well, and it highlights the sharpness of the gear. So this is one that was eating part of a marshmallow at a feeding station. But the colors really just pop on these Orioles, and I was really happy with the clarity of the images I was able to capture. Northern Cardinal female, again, pretty happy with this one. There's another cardinal going for a marshmallow, and then here's after it got a little piece. Just the detail by the face, I think turned out really well. Next up, we have a green jay. This was a bit of an action shot. The green jays photograph it really well. South Texas is a great place for bird photography because there's a ton of awesome species, and they're going to be at relatively close range. It's a really cool photo of a green jay, highlighting the colors, the blues, the greens, the yellows, the blacks, and kind of cool composition with the food on the log. And then this, I think, may be one of my favorite shots, the Altamir Oriole with a little bit of peanut butter suet, but it's turned out really cool. The head is very clear. You get the colors pop in. I like the composition of it, kind of looking to its left. So things like these, I would take and be like, man, yeah, that looks like, you know, a pro photography shot, where I would look at people's photos and be like, man, how did you do that? Now I'm able to kind of get something comparable myself. This is one of the kingbirds. I believe it was a Couch's kingbird that was perched up. This was a long-billed thrasher. Pretty awesome shot, in my opinion. Composition of it, turning left with food. I wish it was a little more clear, but overall, it's pretty neat. This is a cool video of a gray-tailed grackle cracking corn, and you can actually see the corn like puff out when it's crushed. So I thought that was really interesting. This is honestly probably one of my favorite shots. It is an olive sparrow, and it was pretty close, hanging out in kind of that shrubby brush, and the clarity by the face turned out amazing. I think it's really neat the way it's framed with kind of the branches in the way, but I was really happy with the detail in this one. I think it shows kind of the quality that you can get with this gear. So I thought this turned out pretty professional, especially without any editing being done to it. So this is just the out of the camera file. We also got to see the cattle tyrant in Corpus Christi. It was honestly one of my favorite things to photograph because it was so cooperative. It was a pretty tame little bird. So here's some shots I got of that I thought turned out really well. This one, the sidewalk almost looks bluish, which was a pretty cool effect. I did want to include some of the ones that weren't that great. So sometimes you would be trying to take a picture like this long-billed curlew, accidentally focused on the grass. So you get a lot of these shots where it's just kind of like gonna delete it. But then you can go back and get something a little more clear. This one's a little blurry on the face. I think I have better ones of this, but this is just the one I grabbed. But yeah, difference between, you know, the fully blurry one and then the more clear one. Some American widgeons that I thought turned out pretty well. Marbled godwit, and then here's a godwit flock in flight with some willets. And again, the flight shots have just been so fun to take. And I really liked this picture with the background of the buildings. But something with these cameras too is you can shoot shots so quickly. There's a bunch of different modes where basically you can like click and it'll take a ton of pictures for you. I like shooting singles just because, and you can hear how much faster it is. Like you can just fire off shots with this kind of gear. So these are the pictures that I captured. I feel like it was a huge difference. It kind of made me rethink the way I look at photography, because sometimes I look at those pictures and be like, man, those are incredible photographers, but the gear is a huge difference. This is not to say that there is no talent involved with your photos. There's definitely the way you're taking the picture, the way you're composing it, the way you have your settings crafted. So there's a lot of talent that goes into it, but I thought by just adding this gear, it turned me into a pretty professional photographer, especially for just kind of getting it and trying to use it for the first time. It was a lot more user-friendly than I thought. There's definitely a learning curve, especially for like switching between 150 to 400, but I feel like the more I got used to it, the better shots I was able to get. So overall, I would say the type of gear you use will make a huge difference. Whether you think what I was able to capture was, you know, professional or not is kind of up for the viewer to decide. I was really happy with it. I thought it kind of matched some of the photos I've seen that I've been really impressed with. So it's that mix of having the right gear and the right talent. It's not necessarily just one thing or another, but your gear is gonna make a huge difference. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.